Hey guys, welcome to Bethel Online. My name is Jason. I'm one of the pastors here, and we're so glad you decided to make us a part of your weekend. No matter who you are, where you come from, we're so glad you're here. Our vision is to be a safe place for real people to encounter the real Jesus and experience real change. Our hope and our prayer is that no matter who you are or what you've been through, you know that you are loved and you are wanted here. We would love to get to know you better and help you connect with all that's going on. You can do this by going to our website at www.bethel.us or by downloading the Bethel app. You can find our app by searching Bethel Putco in your app store. Both online and in the app, you can fill out digital connection card. It only takes a minute and it'll help us know how to serve you better. Another way you can connect today is through giving. Your generosity at Bethel directly impacts God's mission to radically change people's lives in Putnam County and beyond. Through the ministries of Bethel and the many local and regional organizations we support, people are able to see the grace of God and how much He loves them. You can always give on our website at bethel.us/give or in the Bethel app. Thank you for partnering with us and making a difference. Well, thanks again for tuning in online today. Know that you are wanted and welcome here, and you are loved. I hope you all have a great day.
Good morning and welcome to Bethel Online. Today we're beginning a new series called UnBroken. Have you ever noticed in life that adversity happens to everyone? I mean, you will experience adversity, I'll experience adversity, rich people experience adversity, poor people experience adversity, people who are generally doing the right thing experience adversity, and people who do the wrong thing experience adversity. But have you also noticed that some people tend to rise above their adversity while others get stuck in it? In this series, I want to talk through what it looks like to get through our adversity unbroken. It doesn't mean that we won't be impacted by our adversity, but that we simply will not be defeated by it as God's people. What are you facing today in your life? What sort of adversity, thing you wouldn't have chosen, are you experiencing that you're trying to make sense of? In John chapter 16, verse 33, Jesus tells us that everyone will experience adversity. He says, I've told you, meaning He's told the believers, I've told you these things so you may have peace. In this world, you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. That through the eyes of those that follow Jesus, adversity must be seen differently. Everyone goes through adversity, and the reality is how you handle it makes all the difference. Charles Swindoll said it this way: life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. William Arthur Ward said, adversity causes some men to break and other men to break records. How do we handle adversity in such a way that it doesn't break us down? In the movie entitled UnBroken, there's a story told of a man named Louis Samperini. And Louis is son of an Italian immigrant who gets in trouble, and through his childhood adversity, it's found that he is incredibly gifted as a runner. He actually goes to the Olympics and he begins to prepare, but as he begins to prepare for the Olympics, World War breaks out and he is forced to go overseas, where he becomes a soldier who is placed in a plane and is shot down over the sea. Over the next weeks, he goes from being a man who's an Olympic hopeful to a man who becomes a prisoner of war after spending days floating on the ocean, literally eating whatever came to the boat with the intention to eat him. They literally took the liver out of sharks. They killed albatrosses and ate them just to survive only to finally be captured. And each and every day he was beaten and abused, the kind of adversity that would break nearly anyone. However, Samperini eventually was freed by the end of the war, ultimately lived well into his 90s and lived a life unbroken. In John chapter 9, verse 1 through 41 say this. What I want to talk about today is that the difference in perspective means everything. There's a story of Jesus coming across a man who's been blind his entire life. It says, as he went along, Jesus, his disciples, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? What they're asking is, why does stuff like this happen? From their perspective, there's this man and there has to be an explanation for what happened to him. In Jesus' day and age, it was often considered that maybe if you had something happen to you, that you had done something wrong, or that the generation before you had done something wrong. It's often hard for us to reconcile things like why bad things happen to people that we love, why bad things happen to those who we care about. Jesus' response here is neither this man or his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. And I'm not asking you in the middle of your struggle to enjoy that you're struggling or be excited that it's happened to you. The pain of what's happened to you or the adversity that we go through certainly hurts, and it brings pain we wouldn't have chosen. That maybe it's not so much why good things happen, bad things happen to good people, as that a good God can bring beauty out of broken situations. And when we're in the middle of broken situations, it can be very difficult. But Jesus states that it happens so that the works of God might be displayed in this blind man. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me, Jesus says. Night is coming when no one can work. While I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. Jesus is about to show, with what he's going to do, he's about to show light into a very dark situation. Literally, the man had been blind and in the darkness. After saying this, Jesus spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. This man has been blind from birth. He has felt the adversity of his existence from day one. He's experienced suffering in his blindness from day one in his life. And so in this moment, as Jesus takes what is dirty, unclean, in the dirt and rubs it on the man's eyes, it has to feel like insult to injury. I find it interesting that Jesus is literally about to heal the man, but he's about to use something that was unclean to bring healing. Go, he told the man, wash in the pool of Siloam, which means the sent. So the man went and washed, and he came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? The people around were impacted by the glory of the healing of what Jesus had done to the man. Some claimed that he was. Others said, no, only he looks like him, but he himself insisted, I am the man. What happened was so impressive that they could not believe anything could have occurred that this man who was once blind would now see. But Jesus was showing his power over adversity. He was showing his power over the circumstances. How then were your eyes opened? They asked the man. He replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. The man they called Jesus did the unthinkable through something that you would think would blur my vision. He gave me my vision. He put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. Notice the man took a step of faith by following in obedience to what Jesus had done in him. Where is this man? They asked him. I don't know, he said. They brought to the Pharisee this man who had been blind. So the Pharisees, they now bring the man who's been healed. His life has been changed. He doesn't fully know everything about Jesus, but they bring him to the Pharisees, and the Pharisees are now judging what's happened. Now, the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Jesus had, in essence, done work on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees were determining that this couldn't be from God. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He said, "He put mud on my eyes." The man replied, "And I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God," meaning they didn't believe that Jesus was from God, "for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" They were so divided. When they turned again to the blind man, "What do you have to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He's a prophet." The man, you see, did not realize that Jesus was the Messiah, but when he encountered Jesus, he experienced healing. He experienced Jesus in his adversity. He experienced Jesus in his pain, and Jesus healed him. They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. Could you imagine being the man who had been blind your entire life and then healed, and now for this group of religious people to be saying, "No, we don't believe your story about your pain"? So they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that he can see now?" "We know that he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind. Like, we have lived in the adversity of this with our son. But how can he see now? Or who opened his eyes? We don't know. Ask him. He's of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said he was of age. Second time, they summons the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth." They said, "We know this man is a sinner," meaning they were calling Jesus a sinner. It's interesting that when they spoke to him, they told him to give glory to God, when in reality, Jesus had stated that literally this man would give glory to God while he was still blind. He replied, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." It was his simple testimony of his encounter with Jesus. He wasn't theologically prepared to answer all the religious questions. He didn't have a full comprehension, but he knew this, that when he encountered Jesus in his adversity, he went from darkness to light. Then they asked him, "What did he do to you, and how did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I've told you already and you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will." Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown the man out, and when he found him, by the way, I love that Jesus finds the man when he's in adversity and he now sees, and then Jesus finds him in the adversity of being kicked out, and Jesus comes to him and asks, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." You see, the difference in perspective of the Pharisees and the man who was healed has everything to do with how the man comes out of his broken situation, unbroken, and now healed. And everything to do with why the Pharisees are missing it. Their perspective is a perspective of judgment and not humility. The perspective is of one who had a legitimate encounter with Jesus in their adversity versus those who did not. The man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world so that the blind will see and those who will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What are we blind to?" Two different perspectives in this passage. The disciples who had been taught the same perspective as the Pharisees. Was this the result of some sin? Does this man deserve this? Like, is he just destined for misery and adversity? And the perspective of Jesus, who says this, it was not because of his sins or his parents' sins. Jesus answered, this happened so the power of God could be seen in him. That maybe it's in the adversity and in the encounter with Jesus that in our adversity we can experience wholeness again. Our perspective is what determines if adversity will strengthen us or break us. I don't know what you're going through, friend. And it's often really hard to see when you're in the middle of adversity. But can we begin to ask God what He would have us see through our adversity? God uses adversity to bring about maturity. And then God uses our maturity to give Himself glory. James chapter 1 verses 2 through 4 say it this way, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers." Now, here's the deal. When you're in the middle of adversity, it's kind of hard to say, "Oh, yay, this is amazing." But we must choose, as God's people who have encountered Him, we must choose in what I would consider to be a difficult time to choose God's perspective. How do we choose God's perspective? By seeking it. God, what would you have me see in this adversity that can be used for your glory? Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, Paul says, whenever you face trials of many kinds. It was interesting, the story of Louis Santorini that's told in the movie UnBroken. Louis' perspective was to always seek to overcome the adversity. Even one of the men on the boat who was on the boat with him really got in his head mentally and really struggled to see anything. He immediately started talking about, we're going to die out here. And literally Santorini had to tell him, "Hey, shut up. I refuse to take on that perspective. I want to," and literally it was the difference in life and death. Our perspective is the difference in how we come out of adversity. Will adversity break us, or will it spurn us to break records? Will it spurn us to go to new levels? Because you know, Paul says, that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Friend, God's goal for your life is full development, to become more like Him, to be for His glory. What are you going through today that you can step into an encounter with Jesus knowing that He can bring you through it unbroken? It is our perspective that will allow us to live an unbroken life. What perspective are you looking from, my friend? Are you looking for a perspective of defeat or victory? I love you, Bethel, and have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Are you ready to take your next step? We would love to hear from you. You can send an email to hello@bethel.us. You can send us a message on Facebook, or you can let us know in the Bethel app. And speaking of the Bethel app, Take a moment, if you haven't already, to go to your app store and search Bethel Putco to download our app. There's all kinds of great resources in the app. You can listen to messages, you can view the messages for Sunday morning, and you can also fill out a digital Connect card. You can do that today and each week to let us know that you're tuning in. You can also find some great information about our Bethel Kids Ministry and our Be the One student ministries. Also in the app, you can give. It's one of 3 ways you can give. With online giving at bethel.us/give, in our app, Bethel Putco, or through text. Hey, thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a great day and know that you are loved.